listening to Walking with Him, hosted by Jeff McDermott. Regular guest hosts Travis Phillips, Jeremy Samson, and Brandon. And now your host, Jeff McDermott.
Good morning. My name is Jeff McDermott. I'm your host with Walking with Him. And this morning's kind of an exciting episode because we actually have one of our guest hosts who we're going to start having on some of these episodes and helping us grow here, Jeremy Sampson.
Morning, guys. This has been exciting. Been talking to Jeff about this for quite a while and excited to sit in the chair here and just talk about him.
So normally we have some questions. I think we're going to do things a little backwards today. Normally we kind of start with asking people, especially the guys that have been in here, why walking with Him's so important to you. But we're going to make that your last question. What we're going to start with today is just tell us about you, where your struggles were, and how you got to where you're at. I just know, just in the 2 years that I've been walking my journey, it's been fun watching you. Obviously, you've been walking your journey probably a little bit longer than I have. I just wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
So now that I'm paying attention, it's been really, really fun watching you and honestly, your family. You've watching your son this last year. Man, it's been awesome just watching him become a man.
Yes.
Because I know I got to take Sam to Encounter this last year, his senior year, and then I got to get baptized with him this summer. And yeah, you were there.
Yeah.
So that was very impactful for me. So yeah, let's talk about you and your family and where you're at.
I started when I was a kid. We would go to church. We weren't just the Easter Christmas crowd. We'd go a few more times a year. It wasn't always there. My folks both had, attended church when they were growing up, and it was just something that we did a little bit. But then my parents split when I was 12 and, changed trajectory of a lot of things. Then I lived with our mom until she got remarried and moved to Oxy. And then we stayed with our dad then, and he got us involved in a youth group. And that was one thing that really changed some things for my brother and I when we were kids, was that youth group we were involved in. And then I graduated high school. I go to college, and when I was in college, I'm not gonna lie, it was probably that 4-year span of time. I might have went to church on Christmas. I might have went on Easter. It wasn't a priority. I still believed, I wasn't seeking Him all the time. I believe in Jesus. I believe in God, but I wasn't walking a walk. I didn't have a path. I just was going through, enjoying my college life. And those of us that went to college know what I'm talking about. The things that we enjoyed. And, I met my wife when we were going to college, and then we got married right out of college. We got married, and I took a teaching job out in Goodland. And when we were first married, we didn't have any inkling of being churchgoers, really. We didn't have a church when we lived in Goodland, when we had that first teaching job out there. It really wasn't until we moved to Waukene and we had our first kid. And it was our priority. Your priorities shift when you become a parent. And our priorities shifted if we want to raise our kids in a church. And my wife grew up Lutheran. When I went to church, I went to the Christian church in Atwood, which was a Disciples of Christ denomination. We kind of were a sister church with the Methodist church, kind of did a lot of the same things as them and did our vacation Bible school together. So that was kind of the path there. And we kind of checked out both of them. And then we got invited out to a gala, and that became a home church for us. We were fortunate in the fact that, we were there at the tail end of Wayne Lofton. Any around here knew that he pastored that church for years and years. But then we got to have the privilege of Stan Falkender take over that church as the lead pastor when we were young parents, and he made a really big impact on both my wife and I. She was baptized as a baby in the Lutheran church, like a lot of people are. I was not baptized yet, and I was in my 30s. I might have just turned 30 or been a little bit after my 30th, in my early 30s. And I talked to Stan a lot about it. And I decided to get baptized. And then a little bit later on, my wife got rebaptized as an adult because of a new walk with her. And then we have the privilege of seeing our kids. Aaron would have been second grader. He went up to Stan and talked to him, and he got baptized when he was in second grade. And then Stan retires, and we get our get Shelby and Kristen Crawford there as our pastor and pastor's wife, and they lead in our church. And Jillian decides to get baptized, and we got the privilege. Shelby let us baptize her, which was fantastic to be in the baptistry and be able to experience that. And then my youngest one, Lane, it would have been, he wrestled with it for a long time. He's like, I want to get baptized, but then we're asking the questions. Why do you want to get baptized? Why is this important to you? And it would have been, I think, 2 years ago. He answered all the questions the right way, and you could tell he was ready to do it. And then he asked Mitzi Fagan to baptize him, which was really cool. And in this whole walk, I got to baptize my dad in a stock tank of all things in McCook, Nebraska at Cowboy Church. So it was kind of, some cool things there that I got to be part of with those situations. And, I wanted to come on here because I talked to my kids about being bold. And you mentioned Aaron, my oldest one, and he's not shy about being bold about his faith. Like, if I'm talking to my kids about being bold, I got to be bold.
Right.
I got to step up and do something, because as we all do, I fall short a lot when I'm in my walk.
Right.
But if I'm going to encourage my kids to be bold, I got to step up and be more bold in the public eye of my faith. Let people see what I'm about in that regard. I've always, the verse on the sheepdog stuff, iron sharpens iron. That's my verse. I try to do and live out that every day of my job as an educator. I'm sharpening these kids.
Right.
And sharpening, now my goal is I got to sharpen everybody around me by the way I do things. I can't talk about it when I'm at church, I'm at Wednesday night, I'm talking to you or anybody else, just the two of us. I gotta be bold. I gotta be able to get out in front of this and say, this is who I am. I follow Jesus. I hope you follow Jesus. I want to sharpen you, because that's what we're called to do. We're called to love our neighbor. And I think if you can go clear back to Proverbs and find where we're talking about sharpening, a friend sharpens another friend, that's loving our neighbor. There's reasons why that's the greatest command. It's been there. It's in there, from the Old Testament to the New, of you got to help your neighbors out, because no matter what we do, we're all going to fall short, because we were given the greatest example we could ever be given that we're never going to live up to. But man, we've got to help each other try to aspire to be that guy and be those people where, above all else, we love our neighbors and we want them to find Jesus, because that's what we got to have.
So one question I have here, I really like the way that you showed the be bold, because we've been talking to some older kids at our church, trying to see, hey, once all these guest hosts are introduced, you and Travis, we'd like to see you come in and talk to us and talk about your walk with God. And everyone's clammed up.
Oh yeah.
And understood, right? I mean, we've been teenagers. We understand exactly where they're at.
Right.
But it made me sad, because I was like, man, because I want them to be bold. Just like what you just said right there. And, I'm excited because I've watched you. I listened to your son, Aaron, got up last year during Easter and talked to us men at breakfast, and was kind of talking about his journey just this last wrestling season. So to see what's developed now, and I mean, we're ready to have a playoff game tonight. We're 9-0 right now. Getting ready to go in.
Yeah.
We quarterfinals tonight.
This is just round 2.
Round 2.
We're going around to 16 right now.
We got a little ways to go.
Right.
I can't wait to get him in here. because I just know last year, just watching him
Mhm.
make his change and get things right,
Right.
and just the run that he had in wrestling. Now to see this, these are at 18 years old.
Right.
These are the struggles that he's.
Right.
You and I have different struggles
Correct.
than they have. So it's been really. I want you to go back to the be bold and where
Yeah.
you're at with your kids, because I think that I like the way that you
Mhm.
said that, because I've seen a difference in
Oh,
your
yeah.
kids, and I think that that's awesome. We'll talk about that a little
And
bit.
you know, the thing you think with the kids, with our youth, they gotta. I think they're afraid sometimes to speak about it because they don't want people to see them screw up. You know what I mean? Because oh, you're the perfect kid. You're the one that goes to church. You're the one that's talking about Jesus, but then you go screw up. Man, we're all gonna screw up.
That's right.
You know, that's the thing. We gotta be able to understand we're gonna mess up, but we're lucky because we got Jesus that's interceding for us with God that says, man, you screwed up, but I made that sacrifice for you. I hung on that tree so you can screw up. You have me in your heart. But you're going to screw up. And I took that for you. And I don't think sometimes they understand it because they don't want to be, oh, you can't, I can't believe you did that. I'm a person. I'm a human being. I'm a 17, 18-year-old kid. I'm going to screw up. Heck, I'm a 42-year-old man. I'm going to screw up.
Me too.
I'm going to say things I regret, but and do things I'm like, you shouldn't have done that. But at the end of the day, do I have repentance? Do I have some remorse of when I do it? Am I bold enough to, when I pray, Lord, forgive me for what I did today. I screwed up royally and help me not do it again. And that's the thing I don't think sometimes that kids are understanding of. They're afraid to step out of that box a little bit because they don't want everybody to go, oh, you're that church kid. I'm afraid I don't want to, that guy's going to work. They're going to judge what I do. Like, well, these kids aren't doing that. They're kids, but they have a heart for Jesus. They're not afraid to talk about it if you ask them. But I think this is intimidating to them. Let's intimidate all of us a little bit. But man, you go out and you step out of the box because you're called to be bold because you want to bring people. What did he call us to do? Go out and make disciples. So let's go find some people. And
Fish.
you never know who it's going to be. You never know when your opportunity is going to be to minister to somebody, you know. And I had a experience. One of my best friends from college. We ran around a lot at Fort Hays, and now he's a pastor at a Baptist church in Dallas, Texas. And if you'd have known him when we were college kids, you'd have been like, there's no way this guy's going to lead a flock. You know what I mean? And it had been about 10 years ago, and we went to opening day of the Kansas City Royals. All the guys we ran around with in college, and you know, all of us but him ordered a beer while we're at the game. I'm like, you can have, you know. He goes, I could, but you never know when someone's going to need me to give them talk to them about Jesus, and I don't want them to smell that on me or whatever else it is. And I'm like, I understand it. You know, I'm like, even if you had a beer with us, it wouldn't have made a difference. It's not a sin, but he didn't want that to be the first interaction he had with somebody that he was trying to minister to or help. And, you know, that was like, I get it. He was looking for those opportunities or ready for those opportunities in a stadium full of 40,000 people a day. He goes, if somebody needs me to talk to them about Jesus, I got to be ready. Really made an impact on some, you got to be, you never know when it's going to be your opportunity to talk to somebody about the Lord. And, I feel like that's what sometimes, we had some the other guys in the group, we had a conversation that day. He goes, one of them we hadn't hung out since he went in to become a pastor and things. He goes, man, it was still like hanging out with old Dane. I'm like, yeah, it didn't change. He changed. His heart's different, but he's still the same guy. Right. He's not going to push this on you. If you want to talk about it, he's going to talk about it with you. He's not going to judge you or not love you anymore because he's got a new walk in life. He's probably going to love you more because of this new walk in life. And he's not going to be like, man, I don't think we should do that. He's still a guy, still a guy, but it's just talking about the opportunities to do those things was pretty cool.
So now that you just mentioned that, do you think that your friends have changed since you've made your,
no,
just like that? What you just said?
I feel like a little bit, but I feel like there's a reason why you keep your circle tight. You know what I mean? Because you're always a product of your surroundings. You're always a product of who you surround yourself with. I always tell my kids, I've always told kids I coached and taught, negativity breeds negativity, and so does positivity. So if you want to have a good day, surround yourself with some good folks. You know, negative people usually find the worst in every situation. And if you can't find somebody positive to hang around with, you need to look a little harder, because there's always somebody positive out there to find. You know, and I had a kid years ago. I was a junior high kid. I was helping with something I was coaching, and he looked at me and goes, "Why are you always so nice to me?" I'm like, "What do you mean? Nobody's ever nice to me." I'm like, "Well, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to love you, I'm supposed to take care of you, I'm supposed to make sure I'm doing the best for you, best by you with what I'm doing with you." And he just was like, I'm like, and I didn't use it as an opportunity to, you know, it was a younger kid. It was an opportunity to just show him Jesus' love without telling him that's what I was doing. But people do care about you. And if you would have asked the right questions, I'd have brought it up. But, you know, you don't ask those questions if you don't know the situation of things about their beliefs. But you also just love them. Show them that example of God's love in the way you treat people. And eventually they're going to come around and ask you that question of, man, why do you love me? Or why do you care about me? Because I'm called to love my neighbor, and you're my neighbor.
I think that it's funny that you talked about the neighbor, because we talked about that in the first episode some. The back to the energy, because I think that you talked about that just a second ago. And the energy, I think that I watched this video not too long ago, and he's basically saying, you know, when you wake up every morning, the first thing that you need to do is say, "Thank you, Jesus, for another day." And it sounds silly, right? But I've been doing that, and it just, I think you wake up and you're refreshed, and
Oh, yeah.
you have a smile on your face already, right? And nothing's going to ruin your day. Even when you have a bad day, you're still going to get through it, because you're going to wake up tomorrow and it's going to give you another day. And I think that helps set the pace. And like you said, you know, we talked about your circle and our circle. And I think that that's a thing that if we create that energy first thing in the morning when we wake up, then everybody around us sees it, and then they have the same energy. And before you know it, now that circle's growing and the energy's huge. And I think that that's a big thing in our community. Just in the last year, that's one thing I'm going to change the topic a little bit. We'll get back to where you're going, but that's what I want to ask you is, you know, you're in the limelight in school all the time. You've got a good church family and a big church family. So like, what do you think? What's exciting to you about where our community's at the last year and the fire that I feel that it has?
When you go to the Fields of Faith thing that the kids do, FCA kids do, people are always shocked when they see how many kids are involved in that organization. And in the few years they've put that organization together, how it has grown. And it is probably one of, if not the largest club we have in the school, the high school right now. And we have kids from every church in town are getting together on Wednesday mornings and talking about Jesus and having breakfast and fellowship. What's better than teenagers that have a heart for Jesus getting together and talking about it and not being afraid to do it? And I think it's great that there's a group that they can get together and say, yeah, they go to this church, I go to this church, but we're still following the same guy. I think sometimes that's what, when we were growing up, that kind of got lost a little bit of this denomination and this denomination are completely different situations.
Yeah, we're not the same. We can't.
We're not the same. Hold up. Who's the guy in the book?
Right.
You know, are the red letters the same red letters? Yes. And there's a reason why they're the same red letters, because it doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter. You're getting the message of Jesus. Like, let's find it. Let's find the common ground. The common ground is Jesus. And that's plain and simple part of it is Jesus is the forefront of that message of that. And you see it. It's fantastic to see those kids. And then you see them go on. And, you know, I knew if we'd had it years ago, we'd had some participation in it too. It would have been something, you know, you see, I love it seeing the guys, you know, the Devons and the Nathaniels now that were kids that I coached and grew up, watched them grow. And I'm like, dang it, Jesus is working, and it's awesome to see it. And I think it's going to be in those, the great thing about those FCA events that we have is the younger kids in town see those kids that they watch play football or volleyball or basketball or go to wrestling matches or whatever it is those kids do. They see those kids then not afraid to talk about what's important to them. How many times now, look, when you're watching these kids now, how many times you see a cross on a glove or a sock or a headband? We're seeing it come out more and more, even in our college athletes and professional athletes, of the ones that I hope that it's not just for the camera, you know what I mean? But they're at least giving our kids see that even those people they like to watch on TV play sports are being bold in what they're doing. Their first thing they're saying is, I'm not taking any credit for this. I'm giving him the credit for this. And you guys touched on the I am him stuff on that last episode. There's only one him. And that's, that's something like, just think about this a little bit. No, there's one him. He died on a cross for you and me.
Right.
And the rest of that stuff's because of the glory. You need to give the glory to him when we're doing this stuff. So, but yeah, the kids they're finding their ways. And I think it's great that we've given them a way to get together non-denominationally. They're all together. We got kids from the Lutheran Church, Catholic Church, Church of God, Ogala Church. They're all there talking about Jesus on Wednesday mornings, and it's awesome.
I didn't realize until you just said that. So they're going to get together on Wednesday mornings of doing that. Man, that's awesome.
It's about every other week they get together and they'll have breakfast and they'll have a message and plan, and talk, and then they plan their events and stuff they're going to do.
That almost makes you think that we should be doing that as adults. Yeah. That every other Wednesday we should be getting together for breakfast and building off of their steam and their and what they're moving. Now, something else I was unaware of, I was talking to you a couple of weeks ago. So these other schools are doing this Fields of Faith thing around here now too, or maybe I was just blind and it was going on all the time. Or
we went and supported Ellis's with our Ogala Youth Week because we have some Ellis students that come to church with us and are part of our youth group on Wednesdays, and we felt like it was important to go support them because they're our kids. And I know Hoxie's FCA group had a Fields of Faith this year and last year. Their group's growing as well. So it's, they're out there all the time. And I know, it's awesome to see them and you see their flyers. And I try to follow their groups on social media to see what those groups are doing, because they always have a Facebook group or an Instagram, that you can follow to see what those groups are doing. So it's growing. It's huge. And I know that, you saw all those kids when they did Fields of Faith or had their Letterman's jackets on. I found it and shared it with their sponsors, patches for their jackets, a FCA patch that a bunch of them are ordering so they can display that on their jacket, which is, every time they're going to display something that says, I follow Jesus, and they're going to wear it around proudly, is pretty cool.
So now that you have the power of the camera, if we were going to expand and increase what we're doing with these kids, and instead of having Fields of Faith once a year, what do you think that we could do? How do you think we could get the kids together so it's not just town versus town? You know what I'm saying? How do you think that we could put these kids in one place 2 or 3 or 4 times a year so that we could build off of that?
I think you could do, they call it the Fields of Faith because it's on a football field, but I bet you could do them in the wintertime. You could have an organization, organize a similar situation in a gymnasium. I think I think the possibilities are endless. It just depends on the imagination and the go-gettedness of the kids involved and the sponsors of, hey, let's do something neat here. Let's get some more kids involved in this stuff and, try to have almost like an encounter for the youth. You know what I mean? Like bring them together and talk. And because when I was at Ellis, it was just awesome to see those kids that I didn't know personally, but I've known who they are from watching them play ball and things, talking about Jesus. And it's fantastic to hear those kids talk about it and not be afraid to talk about it in front of people. That's the part that's hard for people, because a lot of people, they go to church, they believe, but it's
Mhm.
hard to talk about it publicly because we've all had those conversations of what are the things you don't talk about at a family gathering, politics and Jesus in church, you know what I mean? And because that's the things that get people fired up. I mean, man, I care less about politics, but we got to talk.
Right.
We got to be okay talking about Jesus more in public. I think it's not a bad thing. And it's one of those deals where sometimes it's uncomfortable, but dang it, how uncomfortable was it hanging on that cross?
I can't imagine. One thing that you talked about politics, so I have to bring my friend Nick Saban.
Mhm.
He always
Mhm.
calls it rat poison.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I always tried, especially this last 2 years. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to make that a big part of my days. Just we're going to stay away from it. We don't watch it. We don't care about it because it's rat poison. We need to focus on being better followers and believers, right? So I'm going to go back to, we just talked about these kids and where they're growing and being bold and whatnot. And, these younger kids, we're watching them grow. I mean, you just said that, all your kids have been baptized, but I'm going to put you on the spot for a second because we're going to talk about your oldest, especially we talked about his last year. I mean, how did that feel as a father? Because we just talked about, they don't want to talk about things.
Yeah.
They don't want. How did that make you feel when he figured out how to repent? Because you could tell the day that he figured it out. Because that's what I mean. That's when life changes, right? When you figured, I've got people that are like, man, it's just I'm praying and I'm praying and I'm praying and I'm praying and it's just not working. And that God's listening to them.
Oh, yeah.
They're just one step away, right? They just got to do that one thing to get linked in, right? And then once they're linked in, then the power is.
Yeah.
So tell me about how that felt, and you watched it because I mean, you could tell. I'm just an outsider, but you could tell when Aaron figured it out.
Yeah. So, we were driving to Wichita in a blizzard. We had a wrestling duel here with Phillipsburg and Smith Center, and my daughter had to elbow surgery in Wichita that morning. We had to be there for this is emergency surgery because her elbow's dislocated. It's put back together in a sling, and it's very uncomfortable. So we left after his last match and are driving to Wichita in the blizzard. He calls and he's just a wreck. It's like, Dad, what do I do? I said, this is all this that's going on the wrestling mat is in between your ears right now. I said, you gotta pray about it, and you gotta find what's going to drive you through this in your brain. I said, you've always had the physical tools. It's all in between your ears right now. And it was, he was sitting in his vehicle, and you could tell where he was at. He was sitting in front of the house, and he was having a rough go. And just watching him. And then that next tournament when we were, we went on Christmas break, didn't go on Christmas break. That next weekend, we go to that tournament in Harrington, and, he changes up what he's putting in his ears. He's changing up what's going in beforehand to praising the Lord. And, he found that song that struck that chord of fear is a liar.
Yeah.
I can't be afraid. And what's going to make me bold and make me brave isn't anything I can do. I'm giving it all to him so then I can go do what I need to do. It wasn't praying for, dear God, help me win this match. It was, take this burden off of me that's holding me back, this fear that's holding me back, and let me go. And then just seeing that was that was the change there. I'm like, there you go. You figured it out. That you can do. And then that's I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Sometimes I feel like we use that verse too much, but it's in this situation, it was, I'm going to give everything to him that's burdening me so then I can go perform at the best I can perform. And it's not, I've noticed a difference in school and other things. Not that he was ever a bad student, but just feel like I see that change of I'm going to give my burdens away because those burdens are that's that fear that's sneaking in. That's the devil on my shoulder going, you're not good enough. You're not good enough for anything. And we all have that in everything we do. And it's just, how do we find the way to say, you know what, you're lying. giving you to Jesus so I can go do what I need to do to perform in this moment, this test, this wrestling match, this football game, this play, whatever it might be, because I know Jesus already defeated you. You know, the worldly things are yours, the eternal things are his. And that was the big thing. This just seeing that change over there. It was good. It was very awesome to see it. And he's been doing a good job of, you know, not letting that doubt trickle in anymore, knowing that he can give all that to give that all to the Lord, and he's going to be there to help him. It's not, oh, I can do these things because I believe. No, I'm going to do these things because I gave all my burdens to him so I can focus on what I'm doing, you know. And those are things that a lot of us have. We struggle with giving our burdens away. I'm a man. I can take this. I can do this on my own. Where that's when that fear and that doubt on an adult, on a grown person, that's where that sneaks in on us when we don't give it away. And we're all guilty of that. Holy cow. You know, we all go through the ebbs and the flows of everything. And when you hit a bottom, where do you go to get out of the bottom, out of that hole? If you're not going to scripture to find your way out, you're not giving it to him. You're never going to get truly out of that rut. You're always going to find a new rut.
Right.
But you hope to stay out of the one you just got out of.
Right.
On your path, because we all talked, you know, you got to talk about we're walking with him, we're on a path. That path's going to veer one way or the other. But how do we get back to it? That's, you know, our human nature is sin. That entered, you know, we all know the story of Adam and Eve in the garden. Once that sin came in, that path is no longer straight following him. The path's still straight, but our walk's going to be, we're going to be all over the place because that sin's there. And there's only one sinless human ever. And he gave us the method. He gave us the path and the blueprint to do it. It's just really hard. And if we can find that scripture to help us get back, or find that, whatever it might be, giving it away to find that path again, we're going to get back on the path and walk with him. But dang it, we're a human being. We're going to screw up. We're going to fall off the path, but he's still there waiting on that path for us to come catch back up.
So I'm going to go back to, we were just talking about Aaron. You did a good, you know, it's funny because we talked about this because wrestling is where that was his passion at that moment. And that was his connection to get him to decide that fear's a liar. Right. But it wasn't just about wrestling. I mean, that was just the struggle that got him to where he was. But like his whole life's changed. I see him walking around and just, you know, helping people, and always got a smile on his face. And it's funny that, you know, sometimes we use a sport or whatever, something to push us to get there. But like his whole life changed. He had a great wrestling season. Right. He got to take home a medal, and I'm sure that was pretty cool. But that wasn't even the impact of the awesomeness that he went through last winter.
Well,
you know,
but before that, I don't think he would have got up in front of the whole group. And that was the Lenten breakfast when it was everybody together, that last one. And Jared asked him to do it, and he didn't even hesitate. And that's that sense of, I'm not afraid of talking about this, because it made a change in me of, I'm not afraid to talk about this because the change was real. And when you see people take that on and have that real change, that real heart change, it's so inspiring to you to say, I can do this. I can do it. I can walk this. It's hard. I'm going to stumble. I'm going to screw up. I'm going to say, I'm going to cuss. I'm going to do the things I'm not supposed to do. But by golly, that's one I'm talking about that. I'm like, I'll try not to do it, but I do it. I'm consciously making the effort to try and be better. And it's enough because of Jesus. Jesus won. And you got to have that outlook on it all. He fought the fight for us, and he won. And now he's there interceding for us to say, I took care of that for him. They repented. Thank goodness. Because I love bacon. I would have been able to follow the law. I love that stuff. I love pork. There's things I'm like, whoops, sorry. Thank you, Jesus, for those. It's those little things like that you're like, those are, he followed the law, and that law, we read the stories in the Old Testament of those guys and those things of how hard it was to follow that law, to do it. And then, then you see how awesome is it that we have him for us.
So I'm going to give you a little option to kind of, before we wind down, before we get to my last question, is there anything that you want to talk about? Is there anything that, I'll get to the last question, but you're going to be a big part of this for the season here. You're going to be on here all the time. So what would you like to see the vision be? What would you like to see come out of this? What are some of your goals? And because you're a very passionate person too.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you'd like to see happen in this first season here?
If just one person comes over and says, "Hey, I saw you on that YouTube video. I saw you on that podcast." That's awesome. They heard me talking about Jesus. And if just you just get one, because it always starts with one, and if I looked back at the first two videos after everybody posted, watching how many views those are getting. As those views creep up, more and more people are hearing this message that it's just normal guys walking this walk with him, trying to fight the fight, struggling through the same things everybody's struggling through, but have found something that makes that walk a little easier.
Yeah.
Because you have a perspective of all the stuff we're going through here on earth is temporary, because we get the opportunity to live in eternity with him. And, that's the thing, you have those discussions of, yeah, what's heaven, what's hell? I don't know. But I know that my only way into what's promised is through him. I don't know what the other side of it is. It's just, I know it's separation from him. And is that what we want? I don't know if it's pits of fire like Dante's Inferno and those kinds of things, because I don't think we're meant to know what those are. We're meant to know that the alternative is separation from him. And let's help get as many people there as we can. Because we've all, like I, talk about surround yourself with positive people. We can get more people around us that are positive and are loving Jesus. Holy moly. What do we need? You always see those t-shirts. Y'all need a little Jesus. We all need a little Jesus, a lot. You know what I mean? Of where it goes a long way. A little goes a long way. And if you get a lot, it goes a real long way.
I think that it's funny that the way you just said that, because I definitely think that one of the things that I've watched some of these guys come with, and because they always come with their struggles,
Mhm.
right? That's when you meet them, but that's when you want them, right? Is when they need somebody to talk to. And I think the biggest thing that they struggle with is letting go, surrendering, right? Because you always you just said it, you're like, well, I'm too tough I'm too strong. And I feel like after I let it go, I got stronger because I'm not alone.
Right. Oh, yeah. And, that's like that old poem, The Footprints in the Sand deal, where you see two sets of footprints, then you only see one set of footprints. That one set of footprints ain't yours. That's when he's carrying you through your darkest spots. And, it's very, my perspective has changed of when I get to a spot where I'm in a rough spot, just mentally, I got to get into the word. And that's when it helps me come out of the rut and come out of that spot. And nothing does it like that. So you can turn to lots of different things. And we all know the different vices that people turn to when they get low. But man, you've never heard anybody regret turning to Jesus when they were in that low spot. And if we can help just, this be an inspiration to get one more person to think, there's some guys out here that are fighting the same fight as me that can help me find the way onto the path. That's the victory right there. And that old hymn, Victory in Jesus, there it is. Let's help get them on the path, and they're going to see that victory is always going to be there if we can get on that path. Yeah.
Travis always says, if you let go of the reins, then, but none of us want to let go of the reins. I've asked, Brandon asked me this, and I've asked Brandon, and I'm going to ask you, and then we'll ask Travis. So, favorite verse or story? You got one?
I alluded to a little bit ago. Proverbs 27:17. Iron sharpens iron, just because one friend sharpens another. As iron sharpens iron, one friend sharpens another. And I like to go look through and read the different versions of how it says it. One believer sharpens another, one man sharpens another, whatever it is. At the end of the day, it's helping somebody else. And then, the different places where in the New Testament where you hear Jesus, it's in John, it's in other Gospels of the greatest command is love thy God with all your heart, mind, body, and soul. The second command is love your neighbor as yourself. And, I didn't think about it so much when I first started teaching. I walk into my first classroom. I'm 22 years old when I get out of college. I'm very wet behind the ears walking in there. And I'm teaching middle school kids at the time. And I only had one classroom rule ever. Treat everyone as like you would like to be treated. The golden rule. But it didn't dawn on me till I found Jesus and started reading the Bible and found out, well, the reason why that's the golden rule. He tells us that's the second greatest command there is,
Right.
Is to love your neighbor as yourself. And if we can't do that, it's a bad place. That's the thing. I gotta tell my wife all the time, you got, when I start getting in that spot where you hear about so-and-so and this, remind me of, that's your neighbor. Build them up instead of tear them down. And that's been my focus the last year is I got to be that example by the way I treat everybody I interact with. They're going to see me and go, man, why was that guy so, why is he taking time to talk to me? Why does he care what happens to me? Because that's what I'm called to do. I'm called to love you. I may not agree with you. And I think that's the thing now with the division of our nation and our world right now of a right and a left that's so far apart. How are we going to get back into the middle and back to where we can do things? We got to understand we're going to take these people for what they're worth and start loving them and meeting them and bringing it back to where there's a center here. That's love of our people, of our neighbors. We can disagree with them and not agree with how they live their life, but we're still called to love them.
Right.
And I always tell my kids, you don't have to like everybody, but you got to love them. I'm like, well, what's the difference? Well, there's a big difference there. You got to care about them as a human being and their well-being. And let's hope that we can shed some light on who Jesus is in the process.
Well, I think that you can change them. Like you said, you treat somebody you don't like very well.
Mm-hmm.
That might have been the one thing that kept them from committing suicide
Mm-hmm.
or going down the wrong path. And we talked about things a little bit ago. I think the one thing is somebody told me not too long ago, you can't take your worldly possessions or your money with you, but you can take your friends. You don't really think about that. So we go back to your neighbor thing that so that's it. I can't take my stuff with me. My Chevy pickup can't go with me, but I can take you. And I think that that's a good point to set the pace of where you want to start with how to treat your neighbor.
Like I talked earlier, it wasn't until I became a dad that it was really something that I felt like I needed to do. I feel like I have a lot of title. I do a lot of things, but the first thing that should be, my first title should be lover of Jesus, Christian, follower of the Lord. And then it's husband, then it's dad. And then it's teacher, it's coach, it's athletic director, whatever it might be. But that first title that people should know about me is he has a heart for Jesus. And then he's a good husband to Bethany. And he's a good dad to Aaron, Jillian, and Lane. And then he really cares about his students. And he loves his athletes. That's why I feel like the walk is so important to follow him, is because all of those people that I'm trying to lead matter more than me. They got to matter more than I do, because I got to be able to be that leader they need when it gets raw.
So I think that that's a good, I'm impressed with how I wanted to move this walk for 2 years, and you've been walking this for a long time. I'm going to make a joke because one thing that I do on my regular job is teach people how to drive semis, and you teach kids
how to drive cars.
So, you know, we got to have faith, right? Otherwise, we might not make it back to the school. Now, as we wind down here, and it's really hard to talk about everything in an hour, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
So, and that's the great thing of having you on here this whole year, so that we can kind of grow from there. But so as we wind down here, is there anything else that you want to kind of talk about?
Well, I'm just excited about the possibilities of this. Grow it, get people, and let people see there's more of us out there than you think there are, and we got your back if you need us, kind of thing, where nobody fights this fight alone. We all have Jesus, but we also have a band of brothers and sisters, a family in Christ that can help you fight those battles and show you places where you can open up that book, no matter which version of that book you like or you prefer, the message is still the same. And what are you immersing yourself in? This is a way you can change your social media algorithm real quick by what you watch and what you follow on there. Even if you're a TikToker, you can find they're out there. The Christian ones that are those TikTokers or Instagram reels or whatever it might be, you can change your algorithm to that's what shows up is that content. And it's amazing how we like to be that scroller on our phone, but man, can we scroll it through something that's a cup filler instead of emptying our bucket, helping, help see people that can see that, man, I can get Jesus everywhere. He's everywhere if we just look for it. And that's the thing, we can help open eyes of Jesus is everywhere if we're just looking for him. In every situation we go through, we can see his hand in it if we look.
It's funny that you say it, because I think that when I started this, when you're not following and you're not right and you're struggling and you don't see no light at the end of the tunnel, you don't realize how many good people are around you. I think that the devil's doing a good job of keeping your blinders on.
Yes.
You just made a good point. You're like, there's a lot of us around here. There is, isn't there? I did not realize how many good people there are around just here, and I'm sure they're everywhere. But I think that when you're stuck in that swamp, we talked about when we say quicksand, and we talked about sand, and that you can't get your head above to see all the good people or the tree limbs to pull you out. I think that I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to touch on that when you were talking, because I think there's a ton of great people that are out here just wanting to help you.
Yes. And that's the thing. You see people like yesterday when we had the kids around town doing Appreciation Day, just loving that people are helping people. And I don't think sometimes people realize that just going out helping people is a ministry of you're loving them by service and helping do things for someone else. It's fulfilling for you, for one, at least it is for me. And you're helping them out and filling up their bucket where they need somebody to love them and show them, man, there are great people out here that care about me.
Right.
And why are they caring about me? And that's our calling. And, a lot of times for me, I was, I may not be able to donate a lot of money to things, but I can go help you do stuff.
Right.
I can go help with time. I
I
can go to work if you need somebody to come help. And I used to not say no to anything. I used to, I'll come help. I'm a little more selective now, but I will, there's people out there that help do a lot of things for a lot of people, not just manual labor, help them clean up yards, help them do those things. If you need help, there's people around that can help get you out of the ruts and help you find a way to just living that life that you're called to live. Because it's all different. Our walks are all different. Our callings are all different. But, a successful life, being successful is a different situation for every person. And man, if you can find Jesus on the way to it, that's the ultimate success. Because the stuff here, like you said, you can't take that with you. It doesn't all fit in a fine box when they put you in the ground. What impact did you make on the people you're around? Did they see Jesus' love in the way you treated them?
You talked about the kids being out helping people. I drove around last night afterwards, get done eating, and I just saw like trash bags full everywhere sitting outside of the alley. And imagine how many people's struggles and backpacks were,
yeah.
Just because, different situations, obviously they weren't in a situation where they were healthy or able to go out and do that stuff. But just imagine, that being their backpack of everything that's their struggles and their problems. And that's kind of the way I was looking at that last night was, man, those are backpacks, you know?
Well, that's a burden. Like, I got to get this yard cleaned up. I'm going to get a citation from the city. I'm not following the ordinances of all this stuff. And we help take care of that. Yeah. Those kids taking that time. We took that time with all those kids yesterday and did some of that stuff for the people that couldn't go out and do that on their own. And well, it was nice to see them. And those kids love to give back to their community because they understand the support they get from it. And it's cool stuff. And I think it gives we're showing our young people about what service is. It's not just, it's appreciating what's around you and appreciating the people that help you out. And it's giving back to them when you can, because you're able to, and because some people aren't always able to do those things. We got to be able to be that crutch, be that help where they need it. And hopefully when you were there helping them, they see how you are and like, man, I don't know why they're that way, and then that might spur on to ask a question of that. And then you're like, oh, it's because I love Jesus. He's my guide. And that's why I like to do these things, because I'm called to help people.
Well, Jeremy, as we wind down here, man, it has been awesome having you on here. And I can just tell right now, just in the one-on-one, I can't wait till all of us get to sit down here and open up, because it's going to be a lot of fun. And, hopefully we can just help one person at a time, because I think that, like you said, that's the goal. But, we'll end this episode here. I appreciate everybody watching the episode, and look forward to seeing more of Jeremy Sampson on these episodes.